guys, Chelsea here from So Simple Home. Today we are talking about pattern layout and reading a pattern. So we're going to do two things today. We're going to learn how to read a regular paper pattern. This is just a pajama pattern from Simplicity. We're also going to learn how to read PDF patterns and how to put together a PDF pattern. So I hope you'll follow along today. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns in the comments, and let's go ahead and get moving. All right, so today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to learn about paper patterns, and we're also going to learn about PDF sewing patterns. Both of them do the same thing. They're a pattern so that you can create a sewing project. Paper patterns are what you find in the store. So if you go to Joann, if you go to Michael's, if you go to Walmart, wherever you go to purchase fabric, you're usually going to find paper patterns. You know, you'll commonly see them from Simplicity or McCall. A lot of these smaller PDF pattern shops are starting to have paper patterns as well that you can purchase. So some people just really like paper patterns. So we're going to learn how to read those. We're also going to learn about PDF patterns and how to put them together, because that is a huge thing that lots of people don't understand. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our paper pattern here. So when you purchase a paper pattern, obviously we've used this one a little bit. It's going to show you on the front what designs, and sometimes it's on the back, what designs come in this project. It's also going to tell you what sizes come in the project in this particular envelope. And if you flip it over, you're going to see the designs. You're also going to see what type of fabric to use, what notions you need. So buttons, zippers, elastic, that kind of stuff. And then they're going to give you the body measurements on what you need. So based on the measurements that you take, that will help you decide what size you need to sew. So one of my teachers in school taught us, you find, you know, your hip measurement. Let's say it's a 30 hip. So you go and you circle medium. And then you know what you want to do. So my kids already did it. They want to do an A and a C. So you circle those two. And that will help you when you actually open your pattern and pull out the directions. So the directions come like this. Again, you're seeing the designs. When you open it, it's just one giant piece of paper. Not only is it going to show you the designs, but it's also going to show you what pattern pieces come in the actual envelope. So you're going to get a yoke A and B, a yoke A and B for your front and back, a front and back for your bodice, your sleeve. You're going to get pants front and back, and a pocket. Okay, so that's important, because when I circle what I want, so my kids circled A and C. If I'm doing A, I come over here and I want yoke front A, so I'm going to need piece 1, and yoke back A, so I'm going to need piece 2, and front A and back A. So that helps me know I'm going to need piece 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do you see how that works? And then they circled C for the pants, so I need pant front C, pant back C, and pocket C. Okay, so for this particular pattern, I'm basically needing all of these pieces. But some patterns are going to come with 30 or 40 pieces because they have so many different designs and options. So knowing what letter of design you want to do will help correspond which pattern pieces you actually need from your packet. So that'll help you. You're also going to get over here general directions, which basically is telling you what symbols you might find, how to adjust your pattern, how to trim and clip, markings that you might need to transfer, all of those kinds of things. So this information is usually pretty similar on each pattern, but it's good to read through the first couple of times just to ensure you know what you're talking about or what you're going to do. The next piece is always the cutting layout. And we're going to show you how to do a real simple layout here in just a minute. But it's giving you different options for different lengths and widths of fabric. So for instance, it's telling you here if you have a 44 to 45 inch wide piece of fabric, that's usually what woven fabrics come with, then you're going to use one of these. This one right here is for 58 to 60 inch with a nap. So usually a 58 to 60 inch is a knit or a specialty fabric of some sort, usually not a cotton. And so it's giving you, a separate layout so that you can utilize your fabric the most. So you see here, it's just folded here and selvages are here, which we learned about in our pattern or fabric anatomy class. And then they folded the two ends in to lay these out. You can see the difference over here. The sleeve is here and the pocket's on this one, but this one's folded slightly different. So these are good to help you. This is for A, this is B, C. So it's just helping you know the best way to lay out your fabric so you can serve the most fabric from what you purchase from the store. Okay? When you turn it over, you're going to see the sewing directions for your actual project. And sometimes they'll come with 2 and they're labeled. Sometimes they'll come with 3 or 4. It just depends on your project. It's going to tell you top A or B. If you weren't doing A or B, you were just doing the pants, then you would go to this piece here and you'd find pants C and you'd be ready to go. So that's kind of how to read the directions. Okay, one of your pattern pieces is going to be on tissue like this. Now some people really like PDF patterns because they can just print them over and over again and they don't have to damage them. If you like paper patterns, I don't mind them. And let's say I wanted to make this small, but I want to keep this so I can make it again in 3 years when my daughter might be a medium. You can trace this, put it in a window, put a piece of tissue paper over the top of it, and you can trace it out so that you can conserve your pattern as well. A couple of markings. So on our directions here, they showed us some of our symbols, our pattern symbols. They're on our project here. Notice it has the different sizes. It's also telling you the seam allowance. It's a 3/8 inch seam allowance. That is typical for children's sewing projects. 5/8 of an inch is usually an adult. Now this is a teen adult, and I think the reason it's a 3/8 of an inch is because this pattern goes from child to adult. So they wanted to just keep a consistent seam allowance. Over here is your fold. So you see this little arrow. It's telling you that this side of the pattern needs to be on the fold of your fabric when you actually lay it down. And we'll show you more of that later. These here are notches. This just helps you make sure you can line up the front and the back in the right area. These are markings to transfer. So you'd want to transfer a circle or a dot, or you can use thread, however you want to mark it from this pattern piece onto your actual material. Okay, it also tells you what the pattern is. It's the yoke back for A and B. Tells you to cut one on the fold. Okay, it has the name and the sizes. So all of those things are very, very common. And they're to help you ensure that you're using the right amount of fabric, you're laying your pattern right so that you have the most success. Okay, let's talk about PDF patterns. I'm going to show you on the computer how to print a PDF pattern off first, and then we'll show you how to cut it out.
So when you are getting ready to print a PDF pattern, you want to open it up, and you want to open up in Adobe Acrobat. This is the best program, and it's free to install on your computer and to open and view and print PDF documents. Yes, there are other programs, but I have found in the years that I have used this program and have been creating patterns, which has been 6 years now, this really is the best program to print from. You're going to get the best results. So I have my PDF pattern here. This is our Cabbage Patch doll pattern. It's a little bit old. It has our old info on it, but it still works. It comes in 2 sizes, 12 inch and 17 inch. We're just going to print the 17 inch today because, as you'll see, this page is the pattern comes off the page. So this is a sleeve and we're missing the other half of our sleeve here. You can see over here, this dress, we're missing the bottom half. The leggings, we're missing the side. Here's the side. So we're going to print this so that we can tape it all together correctly. So I'm going to just push Control Print. It's going to bring up this box. I'm just going to select pages, I think it's 5, yeah, 5 through 10. Now you'll notice over here, I can change how it fits. So if it looks like this, it's not taking up the full space of my printable area. And I don't want that. I want it to take up as much space as possible, because this box right here, most PDF designers have some sort of measurement box. Mine is a 2" by 2" that when you print it, you can measure it. And if it's 2" by 2", your scale is correct. Some have a 1", some have 5". It really just depends on the designer. So you can come over here and you can change to different things. I just custom scale to 100% every single time. And that works for me. Now it may be different on your computer or how your printer prints, so you might have to change it a little bit each time or until you figure out what works for you, but make sure that you measure this 2 by 2 square or 1" square, whatever size square the designer provides. I would just print one test page wherever that square is, and if it works, then you know your printing's good. So once it works, you just send it to your printer.
So when you're looking at this, this is the baby doll pattern that we just printed. So here's the bodysuit. This is the sleeve. Notice half the sleeve is missing. Okay? That's because the sleeve is on another page, another block. And we have to put those pieces together. So that can be very confusing if it's your first time doing a PDF sewing pattern. So we're going to go ahead and put this together so you can see it. I've got 5 pages here. So I'm going to show you how I do it. So first off, you can use a paper cutter if you want. I'm usually pretty lazy and I just use my scissors. Now, my block, I can cut off this excess around it because I have these little notches that are telling me where to match my blocks together. So I'm going to go ahead and cut through my layers here. Cut as straight as I can. And like I said, you can use a paper trimmer if that works better for you. Okay, now notice, all I cut was the bottom and one side. Okay, I'm leaving the rest because all I need to do is put the certain notches together. And if I cut all of it, then I don't know what the pattern is for one. So sometimes that's confusing, like if I have to walk away from it and then I'm like, what am I doing? Okay, so I'm gonna match my notches. So I'm finding notch 1 and notch 1. Notice here's my doll sleeve. And I use tape. You can use glue, you can use washi tape, you can use whatever you want, okay? And I'm just going to tape my notches together. See how I did that? So now I have my bodysuit and my full sleeve. Now, I highly recommend if you're cutting that sleeve out that you make sure you have tape where you're going to cut so that you don't have to try and piece that sleeve together later. But you can always do that later. And then I'm going to go to my next one. I'm going to match my number 2s. So I've got 2s over here, 2s over here, and I'm going to match them. And every designer is different. Every pattern is different. Some patterns come in layers. So I'm going to do my number 3 over here. And you can just print the certain size that you want of that layer. Some don't. Most of our patterns are not layered. So you have to cut out the whole thing, which I don't mind doing because most of the time I have to adjust the size anyway. Okay, so there is my bodysuit, my sleeve, my dress, and my leggings. Okay, that's row 1. Okay, I still have these 2 pieces where I'm matching A here at the bottom and I'm matching number 4 here on the sides, and I'm matching B here. You see how that works? It's not hard, but sometimes they don't match up perfectly. So you have to just do a little bit at a time. You might have to move your tape. That's why I like using tape, because I can easily move things if I need to. And this one I'm just gonna cheat. I'm gonna just tape where I match up down here, because I don't need to cut over here. But let me move this so you can see a little bit better. But there it is. Okay, I've got my dress, I've got my sleeve, I've got my pant. So now all the pieces are taped together, and I can cut them out however I need to in order to sew up this project. Let's talk about laying out your pattern now. So I just have some fun woven fabric here, and this is the pants for our doll leggings. Now typically this I would cut out in a knit fabric, but for all intents and purposes we're going to pretend this is just a small pajama pattern. Now you'll notice on most PDF patterns they're going to have a square like this. We talked about this a little bit, but this is your scale. So if I take my tape measure and I put it on this box, it should measure exactly 2 inches by 2 inches when I print it. If I print it and it's measuring less, it's like 1.5 inches or 3 inches, then my scale is off. So most PDF patterns are going to have a square with your scale on it. So that's important to make sure that you have the correct scaling. Okay, once you have that, you can cut out your pattern if you want. I personally don't cut out my patterns perfectly until I actually have them on my fabric. So for these pajama pants, I have this large piece of woven material. Some tips. Now obviously if it's a paper pattern, and even if it is a PDF pattern, a lot of times the designer will have like a layout guide, just like we showed you on the paper pattern. There's this layout guide so you can conserve the most on your fabric. Sometimes you can actually do a better job than they do. So I'm going to open this up, and I'm just going, put this over here so it doesn't move. I'm just going to fold it in half, because on this particular product I need 2, and they are mirrored. Can you see that? It's mirrored. Now, mirror is a term that you use and see most often on PDF sewing patterns. Mirror means I want one that's this direction on this side, but I want it the opposite direction on this side. And that's because I have 2 legs, right? And I have a butt. One side is for my butt and one side is for the front. And if I cut them both out the same direction, then my pants aren't going to fit. So that's what the mirror term is asking you to do. Just making sure that they're cut mirror images or opposites. So for most projects, if you have enough fabric, all you have to do for a mirror project is put this on here, pin it in place, and cut it out, and they're going to be mirrored. But let's say I only had a little square and a little square. We'd want to make sure we cut one this way and then cut the other square that way. Does that make sense? Hopefully. If not, comment below and I'll try and explain. You'll also have a grain line on most of your pattern pieces. That's important. The grain line is what helps you match it up with the selvage. So you would take your ruler and you're going to match the top of the grain line to the selvage. It's going to be at 3 3/4 of an inch. And then the bottom of your pattern. So this was 3 3/4 of an inch. If I go here right now, this one's 4 inch. Can you see how it's slightly diagonal, that grain line? I don't want that. I want it to be nice and straight with the grain, the warp, and the weft yarns of my fabric. Now, if you have ever had a pair of pants or a t-shirt or something that you were constantly adjusting, it's like the seam was always moving to the front or the back and they drove you nuts, that's because it wasn't on grain. That means they didn't line up the fabric or material when it was cut, or as it was being cut, things started to shift. And so the fabric itself is fighting itself. So lining up the grain is going to make things a lot more comfortable. So lining my grain to my selvage. Okay. Then all I'm going to do is cut out my pattern. Now I personally like pins. I learned how to sew with pins. I haven't tried clips. Maybe if I tried clips, I'd love it. I don't know. But I personally, I'm fine with sewing with pins. So I pin my corners usually. If this was a big pattern, I'd pin more. Now I'm gonna admit, I'm not conserving a whole lot of fabric here. I get that. You could definitely conserve more fabric. Move this down, put the sleeve up here, whatever, so that you're utilizing more of the space. But this is just for show here, to help you make sure that everything's lined up and everything when you go to cut it looks good. Okay? All right, let's do another piece. So we'll go ahead, we'll move this down here just because I know some of you are freaking out that, oh, you might cut it out and waste all of that. Let's do the sleeve. Let me cut out my sleeve piece here. So here's my baby doll sleeve. Again, this pattern isn't meant for wovens, but we're just doing that for the sake of saving some space. So this particular sleeve, it's cut to on the fold. So here's the fold. So I would literally line up my pattern piece on the fold here. Hopefully you can see that. I'd pin it on the fold because I have my fold marking, my pattern marking. And then I would cut that piece out on the fold. And yes, these overlap a little bit, but remember this is my pattern piece right here. So I'm fine. Okay, and maybe I'd have one of these, one of the bands or ribbon or something that I cut out here. So I'm trying to conserve fabric, but at the same time just demonstrate how it would look. So you have either a grain line you're matching with your selvage, or you have a fold line that you're matching with the fold. Those are really your only two options. If you are folding your fabric correctly, it should be on grain. If you're over here folding your selvage like this, obviously you're not going to be on grain. Okay? But if you're folding and trying to keep your fabric nice and straight and you put your pattern on the fold, then you're going to be just fine. Okay? Especially if you're lining your grain line up for your other pattern pieces, your fold should be lined up correctly. All right, I hope this tutorial helped you understand a little bit more about PDF patterns and how to lay them out along with regular paper patterns. If not, leave your comments below. Let me know what your questions are, or head over to the blog post that's up in the description, and that might help you as well. And you're always welcome to email. So we'll talk to you soon.